Good morning. How are we? We're cold here. Now, I appreciate cold is a relevant term, but it is the first time this year that we've ended up the heater on. So our relative term cold, geez, single digits. Where's my temperature? It's actual single digits. If you're wondering why that's cold, we live on the Gold Coast, and the Gold Coast, if you're familiar with I was going to say, if you're familiar with America, it's nothing like America, other than it's a little bit like Southern California, where the weather is just, it's always that nice sort of temperature, 9.4 Celsius here at the moment. I think that's the coldest we've had this year. We had threats this week of like 5 degrees Celsius, which would have been pretty extraordinary. But yeah, somehow we got down to 9.4. And we got up and we're like, why is everything cold? This is really unusual. So that's my problem. That's fixed. That is a heated job away. All right, let's pull everything together. This is a Thursday, which is premature. Normally I'll be doing this about 24 hours from now. We've got travel today. I'm going to talk largely about that. Stefan's here, good. We can talk about code stuff as well, because I have nothing else on the agenda other than the code stuff and the travel stuff and basically whatever people make up as we go along. Other than this week's sponsor, which is Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes. Browser guard, blocks, phishing, ads, scams. Who would fall for these, really? I was talking to someone else about this yesterday. I was talking to a company that works in our industry, and they're talking about the prevalence of phishing and how anyone can fall victim for it, and how it only takes this like one moment of not paying attention, and we all have these little weaknesses. And I'm like, maybe you've heard, but anyway. Malwarebytes, of course, came on board after my unfortunate phish. It feels like a long time ago already, a couple of months ago. Which was upsetting. But anyways, they came on board. I think I finished the actual sponsor byline. Malwarebytes browser guard blocks phishing, ads, scams, and trackers for safe, faster browsing. And again, they came on board after I had my unfortunate incident. I do know people from Malwarebytes. They've been around for a long time, and they build the sort of product that is there to design. It's early coffee. Which is there and designed to stop you from turning into me and clicking on a link that you didn't realize. Now, it is interesting too, because, and this was a discussion I was having yesterday with this other industry peer, it's like it got through Google Safe Browsing. It got through whatever controls Microsoft 365 puts in to look at nasty things in your email links. It got through my human controls. It got through all of these things. Which I do find fascinating. So there is definitely a strong value proposition to be made for having another technical control that can pick these things up a bit earlier. So there we are, Malwarebytes. Thank you for this week's sponsorship. All right, here we go here, Stefan ZR. ZR was here last week talking about Pwned passwords and integrations. ZR says, thanks for sending those blogs through to via Stefan. Very insightful and helpful. Good to hear. That's fantastic. So I'll give you a little bit of food for thought, and then people come up with questions and things like this before I start talking about travel. And I just saw Charlotte on our Slack. The thrilling, exciting work that Stefan has been doing this week is to generate quotes on Have I Been Pwned? Not like interesting quotes like things famous people say, but quotes which are effectively take the price that's already on the website, create a PDF out of it, and put the company who might then proceed with purchasing the service, put their details on it. And apparently that is of use for reasons that I don't think any of us actually understand. So that's I'm sorry, Stefan, that you have to do that. But I'm not as sorry as I am for you as I am for Charlotte, who has had to generate many, many quotes over the course of the years for organizations that just want a PDF with their name on it. So anyway, that work, is it almost ready, mate? I think it's almost ready, isn't it? that work, once it goes out, will mean that if you are at a company where a procurement officer says, I would really, really like to put our company name on something with the price, you will have that luxury. I'm sure you're very, very excited about that. Stefan says getting close. Now, I'm just looking at our Slack channel with Charlotte as well, because this is one of these things where, on the surface of it, you think, how hard can a quote be? It's just the price, obviously whatever the product is it annual, is it monthly, it's the company's name, quotes are normally valid for some period of time. I think we're going with 45 days. Job done. However, there's all these weird nuances. For example, you should be able to take a quote and you should be able to turn it into an invoice, which you can do in Stripe. Keeping in mind, Pwned sits on top of Stripe. We try and take people down the Stripe first-party experience in their dashboard as much as possible. For things it can't do, such as generating quotes, we have to do it on Pwned, and then we just call into Stripe APIs. And the APIs, I think Stefan would agree as well, are awesome. The CLI is really, really cool as well, being able to do things like forward webhook requests so that you can like literally do things in Stripe test mode and have it hit APIs running on your local dev machine. It's very, very cool. So you might think quotes are easy, but where it gets weird is if you want to take a quote and convert it into a product, you can then take that quote and turn it into an invoice, which so far sounds reasonable. And then you get into all the weird nuances, which I think are like partly Stripe and partly financial regulations. Things like, we cannot create an invoice in Stripe until we create a subscription. And the subscription begins when you create it. So if someone actually wants to go through the workflow of create a quote, create an invoice, pay the invoice, we got the quote bit right, we can turn it into an invoice, that's fine, but your subscription starts now. Doesn't matter if you then take 2 weeks to pay it, you've effectively lost 2 weeks because we can't just begin the subscription once the invoice is paid, because the subscription begins when the invoice is raised. So, Joel, it's 3 degrees here. Holy shit, wow. Is that Australia? Where are you, mate, at 3 degrees? Mind you, there's a lot of places in Australia that get that cold. Canberra, good example. Anyway, so that's part of the problem. Now, here's the other problem. What happens if you already have a subscription and you want a quote? Well, why would you want that? You might want that because every year your subscription cycles. Let's say it's the 1st of August every year, for sake of argument. Your subscription renews. So someone's going to pop up any moment now. Incidentally, sometimes people pop up many, many, many months in advance wanting a quote before the subscription renews. And someone's going to say, could I have a quote? Okay, fine. So Stefan can write the code. We create the quote. What happens if they accept the quote? We don't want to turn that into an invoice because, remember, to turn it into an invoice, we have to create another subscription. They already have a subscription. We can't associate the new quote to the existing subscription. Stripe doesn't have a construct to be able to say, let's now create a new quote and then actually have that effectively accept the renewal of a subscription that already exists. So we need to make sure that we can't let anyone actually accept a quote for a subscription that already exists. So what they're going to have to do is we'll have to have a button or a label or something somewhere, Stefan, which is like, hey, you've already got a subscription. It will automatically renew anyway. No need to accept this quote. In fact, you can't. Otherwise, it will screw our stuff up. Let's find better wording than that. And then, to make it even worse, looking at Charlotte's messages on Slack, we've then got tax to deal with. Now, we have to collect, this is just such a screwy thing. We're an entirely online business, for want of a better term. We're a registered Australian business. We operate here with Australian companies under Australian laws. And then there's all this stuff that happens in completely different countries where they want you to do stuff that they like in their place. Now, that's everything from the GDPR hammer, which we see all the time. I'm European and I'm angry, and under GDPR, I'd like to be able to remove my data from the database. Well, you can anyway. It doesn't matter where you are. Everybody should be able to do that. So congratulations, I guess, on being European. In a similar vein, depending on where the customer is in the world, we may have to collect tax from them. Now, Australia is easy. We have to put 10% on top of any product we sell in Australia for goods and services tax. We have a GST. So what happens in Stripe, and there's sort of two sides here. There's the front side of the way you collect the tax, and then there's the back side of the way we have to give the tax back to the government. So what happens here in Australia is Stripe is like, hey, you filled in your address, you say you're in Australia, your $4 product is now going to be $4.40. And there is a 40-cent component, which is GST. And then if someone's purchasing that as a business, they'll claim that back when they do their quarterly business activity statement. We need to take that money and then we need to give that 40 cents to the government because that's the tax. Many of you have probably done some sort of GST, VAT before. Problem is, we also have to do that for Europe. And we probably have to do it for other parts of the world as well, which means we also have to report into those jurisdictions, which gets really, really messy. Now, fortunately, Europe, you can wrap everything up under this VAT-OS, which I see Charlotte's messages full of now, which I don't completely understand other than the fact that there's something to do with Ireland, and we chose Ireland because they're in the EU and they speak English, and there's some sort of consolidated reporting that can all go through there. There you go, Scott's here, VAT-OS. Oh no, as soon as I saw your name, I'm like, yeah, you feel my pain. So we do that. And now we're doing the UK stuff as well, because apparently we should do the UK. And then you get to the US, and every state does things differently. And then you're kind of like, well, you came to my website, mate, to buy something. Why am I collecting tax for you? Because you're in, I don't know, Kentucky or something like that. It's a bit painful. And then there's just these nuances, like Charlotte's saying. I think I can read her messages here, because we're trying to figure out that the tax bit here. The customer is not tax exempt. It's just the VAT reverse charge mechanism if they're based, and immediately I just lose interest. I just want to write code and have fun, and I have to do tax. So speaking of fun, Scott says you can reverse charge all the EU ones if they're a business. And this was the other thing that kept coming up. It's like reverse charge if they're, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but that basically means we don't have to charge them tax, but we have to collect their tax information if they're a business. So, but if there's not a business, then you have to collect the tax. And then we've literally sat there with accountants having this discussion around, well, how much of your business is B2B versus B2C? It's like we try not to ask questions because privacy. Well, yeah, but it'd be better if you ask that. Well, what are we selling? Like effectively domain searches and API keys. Business? Mostly, I guess. It's just not much fun. It is really not much fun. And then, to make it even worse, when Steffi finishes that, then we've got to do the reseller portal as well. Speaking of not much fun. What we're trying to do, being slightly more serious just for a moment, is it's just Charlotte and Steph and I. We are very, very resource constrained. We've got lots of data breaches and things to load, lots of other things to manage in terms of like running this increasingly large platform. We need to divest as much of the manual ticketing work as possible. And I know Scott has the same problem with Report URI as well. But if we don't divest that work, we can't keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And I think we're increasing the subscriber base like 50% a year or something like that. Just organically, like we don't advertise or do any stuff like that. We can't keep allowing people to use the service naturally, organically in the way they are, and have the ticket volumes expand as well. Because at the moment we get up every morning and there's so many emails of people want a quote for this, or they want a reseller for that, or so anyway. And I put that in fairly directly in the message to you yesterday, Stephen. It's like, we've just got to automate the things that are taking our time, because I don't want to have to hire an Oompa Loompa to do that. That just pains me. I think I'd sooner just go, no, you don't get quotes or reseller stuff. But anyway. All right, let's talk about travel. Now, we've got, where are we? 11 hours from now, we'll be on the way to the airport to head off on another great adventure. And what we've tended to do, I've spoken about this before on the video, let's recap briefly. What I've tended to do is when we, I guess we feel the itch to go and actually see humans face to face, because it's one of the problems working for yourself. Scott's in the same boat, Stefan's in the same boat, working for yourself, working for us, but working from home is that you don't get to see humans a lot. Now, for some people, that's that's a bonus. But it is also a little bit difficult when you don't get that face to face, particularly with customers or with parties that you interact and have dependencies on. So we've tended to go, okay, what's a part of the world where we know there's a bunch of, particularly these days, governments and law enforcement agencies who we find we spend increasingly large amounts of time with. Where's a good part of the world where we can go and catch up with a bunch from one place, or roughly one place compared to Australia? So September we did the US and Canada and did FBI and RCMP and all the other acronyms and some other customers or partners. Yeah, places like Stripe. We spent time at Stripe in San Francisco because obviously we have a big dependency on them. And then a couple of months ago we were back in Europe where I got fished after drinking beer with Scott. And spent some time there with the NCA and the NCSC and in Ireland with Stefan and Iceland with Stefan and then Ireland. And this time we looked at the time of year, which is winter down here, as we've already established. It's very, very cold because we've got some single digits today. and went, okay, it'd be good to go back to the Northern Hemisphere and it'd be good to go and spend some time in a part of Europe where we do have a lot of different relationships. So that's where we sort of went, okay, well, that like Alpine region, lovely in summer, really nice time of year, great driving there, a lot of stuff you can see within several thousand kilometers of driving. That I think if I had have led with that, if I had have said to Charlotte, let's go and drive like probably 3,500 kilometers, maybe we wouldn't have had the same outcome. However, here's the plan. And some folks who will listen to this now or later on, we will actually see. And then this is sort of the goal. Like, let's just go, here's where we're going to go. And then we'll find who is in that area that wants to catch up. And we have been able to fill it in with a lot of stuff now, which is pretty good. So we're going to go and have a couple of days in Dubai along the way. There is some work stuff that we want to do there. I'll see if I can talk about that later on. But I have some ideas, which will hopefully start to address some of the problems that I've just been speaking about, namely a lack of time. And then we're going to go on to Munich. And I sort of picked Munich because it's far enough south in Germany that you've got good access to the other places we want to go. We'll talk about in a moment. They've got lots of good cars in Germany. Definitely want to get a good car for a driving trip like this. They've got autobahns in Munich. So we'll go to Munich. And from there, that's when this sort of counterclockwise grand tour begins. So we're going to go to Liechtenstein. We do have a relationship, excuse me, with the Liechtenstein government. They are one of the governments on Have I Been Pwned. Now, Liechtenstein is one of those, it's a bit like one of those Isle of Man situations where they're not an independent country, but they're, what are they? Are they a principality? I have been to Liechtenstein before. And it was one of the coolest places I went when driving around the Switzerland, Austria, Germany sort of area. So we'll go back there, catch up with those folks. We'll be in Zurich just after that. So this Monday night coming, I'll be doing the Azure user group meetup in Zurich. The next day, we're going through Bern. We have a relationship there with the Swiss government. And Bern, I guess Bern is the Canberra of Switzerland. Ooh. Bern's nice. So definitely been there before. We'll go catch up with those folks. Go to Geneva. CERN is in Geneva. If you're not familiar with CERN, CERN is famous for two really cool things. One of them being the birthplace of the World Wide Web, where Tim Berners-Lee sat and did the original spec for the World Wide Web, early 90s. And they've also got the Hadron Collider, the world's largest machine. And we have been to CERN before in 2019. And it was very, very cool, where we got a tour of the whole thing, just seeing the Hadron Collider. It's like it's physics and science and engineering beyond what I can even begin to comprehend. So I'll go back there and see that. I did a talk last time too. It was kind of cool. They're like, here's Tim Berners-Lee's office, and here's where he designed the World Wide Web. And then you go down the hall a little bit, and then I do this talk about how messed up the World Wide Web has become. So, yeah. Oh, geez, that was 6 years ago I did that. So we'll do that again. We will be in CERN in Geneva. Other cool thing, Geneva is pretty much on the border with Switzerland and France. So you're in CERN and they're driving you around because they've got things like the antimatter factory. I still don't even know exactly what antimatter is, but they've got a factory. It literally says like antimatter factory. So we'll go there, but you're driving around. It's like now we're in Switzerland, now we're in France. Anyway, I think it's good fun. We'll go from there over to Annecy. We're spending some time in Lyon with a French health cert, I think is the correct term there. We'll then head down to Monaco from there, which I've not been to before. I know Scott is fond of Monaco. Unfortunately, we didn't realise that the time we are there are the days off. So they are holiday times. So I have been in touch with the French, with the Monte Carlo cert. Monaco cert? No, the cert there. And unfortunately, that's the days that they're not working. But we will go from there, going over via Portofino down to Rome. We have another user group there in Rome. I think we'll probably have some other private meetups as well, but there will be a public user group. It's listed there on my blog. What is it for people listening to this later on? It is the .NET Code Italy meetup on the 24th of June. When is that? That is a Tuesday. So Tuesday after next. So we'll be there. That will be the last public event we have before we start to head back towards Munich, going up through Maranello because Ferrari, why not? And you kind of got to go through Medina kind of area. Stelvio Pass. Now, Scott will know Stelvio Pass. Well, no, of Stelvio Pass, but just Google it. If you're a car person, everyone knows Stelvio Pass, and it's just like switchbacks all the way up the mountains, a couple of thousand kilometers high. The car we chose for this drive too, we our original plan, original thinking of the plan was we'd go down to the east of the Adriatic Sea and go to like Serbia and Croatia and all those sorts of places because I'd never been to any of those places. And as it's turned out, I've been to certainly every single country, which we're going back to now. We were going to go down that side until we realized that the really cool cars that you can hire, you can't take there. So everything changed. But we ended up going, if you were going to do a bunch of Autobahn driving, a bunch of freeways, as well as mountain passes, you've got luggage as well, and it's summer. What is the perfect car for that? And depending on who you rent, I probably won't say the name, just someone's socially engineering my car out of me. There are some good choices. So we ended up with an SL63 AMG, which is the same engine. Effectively, Scott's like a Lamborghini. I don't fit in a Lamborghini without luggage, mate, let alone 2 Lamborghinis, let alone the compromises we've already had to make with luggage. So SL63 sounds a good idea. So that is effectively the same engine as we have in our E63, which sounds epic. Scott's definitely driven that one before, which we really love. It's a convertible. It's got 2 very, very small token back seats, which is enough to fit soft bags on. So we had to get some more luggage because our normal luggage just wouldn't even fit. So it should be able to fit all that. I think it'll be an epic car for Autobahn cruising, for all the other stuff. And look, Porsches and things like that would have been nice, but I kind of want the convertible, and then you compromised even in more space. I don't think it'll be as good a car for the time we're just sitting on freeways going for ages. G'day, Dan. Thanks for joining. So I think that SL63 is going to be the absolute pick. It looks really, really nice. Really nice. Probably wouldn't be my first pick for going up Stelvio Pass, but also looking at videos, Scott, I don't know if you've been up Stelvio Pass, it seems like it's not something you can drive up the way that we would normally like to drive up other places. From what I've been watching lately, it seems like something that is more visually impressive than it is actually lovely to drive. But we'll see. So maybe that car will be fine. I don't know. So we'll go up there. We're going to round out the trip with a little bit of time in Austria before going back to Munich and flying back to Australia. And we will have a day in Australia, and then we're going to Japan for a proper holiday with the kids. It's just the way it worked out. So I'm not sure when I'm going to fit the video in there, but that's the broad plan. If you're along that route, Zurich and Rome are the two places for the public events. And if particularly with the government or a law enforcement agency in any of those other spots along the way, and I haven't already spoken to you, if you're in Monaco and you want to see us on your day off. On the map. Whoa. Thanks, Siri. That's disconcerting. All right, so let's see what we got left. And then I'm quite happy to make today a little bit faster as well, because I literally have a whole floor covered in clothes at the moment. Because we don't have our normal suitcases and we had to get like soft duffel bags, the packing is a little bit chaotic. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Vados. Let's talk about that. Scott says you can reverse charge all the EU ones if they're business. It means you don't collect the tax. They're then responsible for paying the tax directly to their government, which, as I understand it, that's what we do. That's the bit that Charlotte did. Stefan says, too bad my 10 gigabit connection doesn't create Stripe quotes any faster. Yeah, we've been hearing a lot about Stefan's 10 gigabit connection. It just feels like only yesterday we were very happy to get gigabit. I was especially happy to get gigabit because I was getting, I think from my prior connection, 140 megabit. And you guys always used to take the piss out of me for having bad internet. And now gigabit is makes me very happy. So good start. Folks, I'm going to round it out there because there is a ridiculous amount of stuff that needs to be done before I go, including the fact that while we're away, we're getting a huge amount of renovation stuff done. And I've got the Sparky here in half an hour, and I've got to show him where a whole box full of Shellys need to go into the various rooms, as well as a heap of other electrical and IoT things, which hopefully by the time we're back from all of this travel in a month, I'll be able to make work. We'll see. I'm gonna come back, and there's going to be like literally dozens of things broadcasting their little Wi-Fi access points, as the Shellys tend to do. All right, folks, let me round that out. Next week, okay, let me see where I am next week. We'll figure out where we're going to do this on Friday. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. My Amex got defrauded this week. That was fun. Because you get one of those messages. And, of course, as soon as you get a message, which is like, hi, we're a financial institution, there's something wrong with your account, you're like, really? You sure? Really? Turns out there was, and someone had managed to get my card details. I have a bit of a suspicion of where it was, and it wasn't me who gave them the card details either. But yeah, Amex defrauded, Amex cancelled, hopefully having one arrive today before we leave. So the next Friday, we will be in. What is the next Friday? What's tomorrow? That'll be the 20th, won't it? We'll be in Gordes. Gordes going to Monaco. So maybe I'll try and do this. Yeah, actually, we will be in Monaco. So I'll try and do this from Monaco next week. That'll be really cool. Awesome. All right, folks. Thanks very much. I'll catch you from Europe in a week.